It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
I think that I wanted to say this on the podcast to let people know that being a parent sometimes just sucks. It really, truly, absolutely, unquestionably, in every way, is horrible.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the founder of happyfamilies.com.au, here with Kylie, my wife and mum to our 6 children, who, frankly, this week, for our I'll Do Better Tomorrow episode, I need to confess, I was almost going to say something I would regret then. Every Friday, we have a conversation about things that have gone right or things that have gone wrong, how we want to be more intentional in our parenting based on our learnings from the past week. Kylie, I'm going to go first today. We've had a whole bunch of voice memos come through. We've had all sorts of feedback that have come through from recent podcasts to do with financing, to do with filling kids' joy tanks. I wanted to play all of those today. I also wanted to talk about movies that we've recently seen with the kids, but I think we just need to dive straight into our review and see where it goes. And I'm going to go first because I've had just the crappiest week, perhaps in all of parenting, in all of the world this week. As a parenting expert, as the guy who's written the books, the guy who stands up and tells everyone how to have a happy family. I mean, we had these podcasts a couple of weeks ago, in the last week and a half, about filling kids' joy tanks. The joy in the Justin Coulson joy tank has been noticeably absent.
It's a bit of a cup at the moment.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We were talking about joy, and you said cup. It's a thimble. I've got a thimble full of joy. Actually, I'm still loving life, but not when I'm parenting. Like the last week, if I could give up parenting, I would. It's just been, it has sucked. I don't know how else to say it, and so it's really hard to be reflective today, and find lessons when I'm just over it. And I get all these emails from people all the time saying, I've got a kid with ADHD or ODD or autism or this or that, and what do I do? And I'm drowning in it. And usually I know how to be useful and supportive, but this week it's me, and I'm over it. Over it.
I'm really grateful that you're willing to kind of talk about this, because I think that there is not a single parent who has not at some point or even today experiencing that same feeling of just really wishing they could just close the door behind them and walk away, because it gets like that at times. And as a parent, I think part of it is because we don't just get to deal with one challenge. At any given time, we've got our own personal stuff going on, whether it be finances, a job, whatever. There's all this stuff going on in our lives. And then we've got our children's challenges on top of it. And generally speaking, if we've got more than one child, it's not just one challenge. Everyone's got something.
Yeah, and I don't want to over-disclose here with our kids, but we've got one kid who's got some proper mental health issues. And we've got another one who's dealing with some really big issues, just dealing with big issues, like heavy issues, and making choices that are inconsistent with the values that we've shared, or at least hinting and indicating that she's frustrated and struggling. Like there's just this issue there. I'm intentionally obfuscating what's going on there because I want to protect her privacy and her stuff. And then we've got one who has an ADHD diagnosis. I mean, what were the words that the psychologist said when she saw the scores on the tests that we did? It was like, these are off the charts or something.
Yeah, she kind of looked at me and said, you have every right to be questioning.
Right, your sanity. But one thing that we've never said on the podcast, and we do this mainly to protect our kids, but ADHD is not the only thing that she's scoring off the charts on. There's particular oppositional behaviour that she also scores massively highly. In fact, the psychologist said to us, are you dealing with this? And at the time, we were dealing with it just fine, but the last little while, it's driven me spare. And everything that I teach in my webinars, everything that we do in it. I mean, and then last week we did a workshop. You and I both, we were asked to go to Brisbane together and run 2 presentations where we're talking about loving our kids and connecting with our kids and filling their relationship buckets with lots and lots of connection. And okay, that's the end of my whinge. It's not even a whinge. I think that I wanted to say this on the podcast to let people know that being a parent sometimes just sucks. It really, truly, absolutely, unquestionably, in every way, is horrible. And that's where it's been for me.
It's interesting. I feel like in some ways men have it a little bit tougher, because I'm wondering, as I'm thinking about the friendships that you have and the kinds of conversations you have with your friends, who do you go to when you're having these down days as a dad? Like, who do you talk to?
Yeah, so I don't talk to anyone. It would be very hard for one of my friends to say, well, parenting expert, here's my parenting advice for you.
Yeah, but I don't go to my friends for advice necessarily. I go for a listening ear. I go for someone who can just empathise with me and let me know that it's not always going to be like this.
Well, I talk to you.
And that's probably not helpful either at times, because I'm so emotionally involved and attached to the situation that I don't have the clarity to give you, the emotional support that sometimes you need. And I just wonder whether or not this is a dialogue that needs to be had more.
Yeah, it could be. So my take-home message is sometimes being a parent is just horrible, and I'm not even going to try to suggest that there's a way forward. I'm not going to suggest that here's what you need to do. I've got to dig my way out of here over the next few days. Maybe the weekend can be the circuit breaker. I don't know, a trip to the beach, some surfing, some walks, some wrestling, some reading, some things that put the joy back into the relationship. But it's really hard when sometimes you would rather just not actually see the kids. Like that's kind of where it's been. I would just rather not have to engage at all. Mind you, in the last 24 hours or so, I have deleted all of the apps from my phone that caused me to turn away from the family at all, so that I can leave my phone alone, use it only as a tool, and be more present. So I'm hoping that at least that will make some kind of a difference.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your difficulties today. I think it's important for us to kind of let people know that we don't always have it all together.
No, not at the moment anyway. So, Mrs. Happy Families, hopefully, well, I know what sort of a week you've had, but let's find out how you're going to be more intentional, what you can reflect on, and how you can do better tomorrow right off the break. Tweens, Teens and Screens is the webinar you need if you're struggling with screen time at home. Join me as I unpack the simplest methods to deal with the screen scene and eliminate the drama without having to ban all devices, even in some of the trickiest situations. Screens can work in your family's favour even if you have tweens and teens. Check out Tweens, Teens and Screens at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And my story kind of fits in really nicely with...
Is it a positive one?
Well, no, it's not actually a story. It's really insights, I guess, and it flows in because the reality is it's been a shared experience, and parenting right now it feels really, really tricky and hard. But as you already suggested, last weekend we were able to go and do some workshops, and I was able to kind of catch up with some old friends. There was some familiar faces in there and a few new ones. So shout out to Jane, Anissa and Hannah. It was really awesome to spend some time and talking about the things that make a difference in our families. And as I kind of was just thinking about those conversations, one of my friends specifically wanted to know how everything was going. And I just couldn't stop grinning. From ear to ear, I was telling her how amazing things are since we've moved up to the Sunshine Coast, and we are just living this life that we honestly never imagined was possible.
And until I lost it with the kids over this past week, it has been.
But the reality is, no matter how good our lives are, there is always challenge. There's always opposition. There's always going to be something that can pull us down. And this week it has really, really pulled you down. But the reality is we have those kinds of experiences on a regular basis. And most of the time we're able to pull ourselves out of them pretty quickly. And so, for anyone out there thinking life is idyllic and perfect, at times it really feels like that. But there are times where the challenges really kind of mount up, and it can be really easy to only see them and not recognize that there's good outside of that. And so as I went through my week this week, I was really intentional about doing the things that light me up, that actually fill my joy tank, because we've been talking about that last week on the podcast. And this week I was able to run the furthest I've run and actually beat my time. It was just a really nice way to kind of, give myself the space and time that I needed to come back and be more present with the kids. And for the most part, those challenges that you've spoken of are intense, and they, from time to time, can really, really affect even me and my mental capacity. But being able to have conversations with, one or two close friends who guard my children's hearts as well has been really important for me, being able to kind of just pick myself back up and show up again and try again when I fall down and kind of get it wrong. And I think it's just for me personally, has been such an important part of the process, having someone that I can talk to and just recognizing that it's not always going to be great, but if I can take the time to do the things that fill my cup, it allows me to show up better.
Just listening to you talk makes me feel like we can do better tomorrow. It really does. I feel like having this conversation might have brought everyone else down and made them never want to listen to us again because we're not perfect. But I feel like we can do better this weekend. I feel like it's doable. We've just got to get stuck into it and have a go.
It's all about having a go, hon.
Okay, well, the Happy Families podcast will be back on Monday, and hopefully it will be back more energetically. Hopefully we'll be able to say we've had a good weekend and we actually do love our kids and they're doing okay. But until then, we hope you have a great weekend. On Monday and all next week, we're going to start exploding some parenting myths. I can't wait for what we'll be talking about. Oh, and we're going to review Minions and Lightyear on the podcast as well. The podcast is produced by Justin Roulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. And for more info about making your family happy, read some of the stuff that I've written previously when my family was happy at happyfamilies.com.au.